AITA for cutting ties with my dad after his wife handed my stepbrother a job running my property without my permission. I thought I understood what it meant to build something from the ground up. Brick by painstaking brick, I saved for years, for a decade even, for my first piece of real estate. But what happens when the very people who should celebrate your hard work, when your own family tries to tear it all down piece by piece right before your eyes? And then they have the nerve to call you the problem? I'm 29, a diesel mechanic, and for 7 long years, I've been wrenching on heavy equipment. Every spare moment, every extra dime went into my dream, owning property. Last year that dream became a reality. I bought a duplex. Nothing fancy, a solid 1960s brick building in a working-class neighborhood. Was mine. I moved into the bigger unit and I rented the smaller side to a young couple, Marcus and Destiny. They've been model tenants for the past 8 months, absolutely perfect. Now for some background. My mom passed away when I was 12. My dad remarried when I was 16 to Linda, and she came with her son Tyler, who was 12 at the time. To say we never bonded would be an understatement. Tyler, he's always been the type to want rewards without putting in any effort. He's 25 now, bounces from one dead-end job to the next, and currently lives in my dad's basement playing video games, trying to build his brand as some kind of social media influencer. Last I checked, he had about 340 followers. Linda, bless her heart, has always pushed for Tyler to be treated as my absolute equal, despite our vastly different life choices. When I graduated trade school, she suggested Dad split the money he was giving me for tools with Tyler, just to be fair. When I finally bought my first truck with money I'd saved for years, she told everyone at Christmas that Tyler would probably be getting a car soon too. Like it was some competition where we both deserved participation trophies. My dad? He usually just goes along with whatever Linda wants. His words, not mine. It's easier than the alternative. And then it happened. 3 weeks ago, I got a text from Marcus, my tenant, asking if I'd hired a property manager. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I hadn't. I called him immediately and he told me that some guy had shown up, claiming to manage the property now, demanding to inspect their unit, asking when they'd paid rent, and if they'd considered paying early for a discount. Before Marcus even finished describing him, I knew. Tyler. After work, I drove straight to the duplex. And there he was. Tyler. Sitting on my front porch like he owned the place, wearing a polo shirt and holding a little clipboard. He actually smiled when he saw me. Smiled like he'd done something impressive. Hey bro, he said like we were best friends. Linda told me you needed help with this place. I'm handling things now. Tenant relations, inspections, the business side. You're good at fixing stuff, but I figured you'd need someone who knows how to manage people. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds, just processing the sheer, unbelievable audacity. My blood was boiling. I told him very clearly that I hadn't asked for help. I didn't need help. And that he needed to leave right now and never speak to my tenants again. He laughed. Actually laughed. Dude, relax. Mom talked to your dad and he said it was a good idea. I'm getting experience in property management. It's going to be huge for my portfolio. Don't be so uptight about it. That's when I snapped. My dad doesn't own this property. I do. And neither he nor Linda has any authority to give anyone a job that involves my asset. He rolled his eyes, called me selfish, and finally, thank God, he left. That night I called my father. The conversation was infuriating. Look, son, he said as if I was the one in the wrong. Linda thought it would be good for Tyler to learn some responsibility. Property management is a real career. He's not hurting anyone. He's just trying to learn the business. I almost screamed. Dad, he showed up at my property and harassed my tenants without my knowledge or permission. That's not learning. That's trespassing. His response? Don't be dramatic. He's family. You should be helping him out, not making a federal case out of it. Linda's upset that you embarrassed him. That was it. I told him that if Tyler ever showed up at my property again, I'd call the police. My own father hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it. I was so wrong. 2 days later, Marcus texted me again. That guy came back. He let himself into our unit while we were at work. Our neighbor saw him going in with a key. My blood ran absolutely cold. I don't have a spare key just floating around. This meant Tyler either picked the lock, got a copy made somehow, or, and this is what my gut told me, Linda found my spare when she was cleaning up during a visit to my place last month and had a copy made. I drove over immediately. Marcus and Destiny were home by then, and Destiny was visibly shaken. She told me that when they came home, things had been moved around. Their filing cabinet had been opened. And a jar of cash they keep in their bedroom closet, about $400, was missing. Marcus looked me dead in the eye and said, "Man, I like you. You've been a good landlord, but if this happens again, I'm calling the cops and a lawyer. I have rights." And he was absolutely 100% correct. In my state, landlords must give 24-hour written notice before entering. What Tyler did wasn't just inappropriate, it was illegal. And if money is missing, that's theft. I called my dad again. This time Linda answered. Before I could even say a word, she launched into a lecture about how I was sabotaging Tyler's confidence and acting like I was better than everyone just because I bought some little building. When my dad finally got on the phone, I laid out exactly what happened. "Dad, Tyler broke into my tenant's unit, went through their belongings and likely stole cash." His response? "You don't know it was Tyler. You're just assuming. He said he was doing an inspection. That's normal landlord stuff. You should be thanking him for taking initiative. He's learning the business." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad," I said, my voice barely steady, "there is no learning the business when you break the law, violate tenant rights, and steal from people." I told him if he or Linda didn't get Tyler under control, I would press charges and pursue this legally. And that's when he hit me with it. "You do that to family? Your mother would be ashamed of you." I hung up. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Here's where I was left needing advice. Marcus and Destiny deserved better than this. I'd already apologized profusely, changed their locks, and told them I'd install a security camera at my own expense. But Marcus mentioned that Tyler had also asked them about their security deposit, the $1,200 they paid, and whether they'd gotten a receipt. They never got a receipt from Tyler because they paid me directly when they signed the lease. This made me paranoid. I went through my records and confirmed their deposit was sitting exactly where it should be. In my dedicated escrow account as required by law. But why would Tyler be asking about it? Then I remembered something else. 2 months ago, I had a prospective tenant who ultimately decided not to rent from me. She'd given me a $600 holding deposit, which I returned in full when she backed out. But she mentioned during our last conversation that that guy who works for you had called her asking about paperwork. "What guy?" I'd asked. "I don't have anyone who works for me." A chilling thought started to form. I was beginning to suspect Tyler had been contacting prospective tenants, possibly collecting deposits, and pocketing the cash himself. But I had no proof yet. What do I do? Do I go to the police right now? Do I try to track down other people Tyler might have scammed? How do I protect myself legally if someone comes after me thinking Tyler was actually working for me? And honestly, how do I handle my dad? He chose Linda and Tyler over basic decency. My mom would not be ashamed of me for protecting my tenants and my property. She'd be ashamed of him for enabling this. I was exhausted, furious, and needed perspective. The advice I received was overwhelming and clear. Document everything, protect my tenants, and don't let family guilt stop me from pursuing legal action. Property managers and lawyers offered incredibly specific, actionable steps, and I followed them. First, I secured the property. I had a full security system installed on both units, doorbell cameras, motion sensors, a camera covering the parking area. I replaced all exterior locks, putting in smart deadbolts. Marcus and Destiny were so relieved. I gave them a written letter, apologizing for the unauthorized entry and confirming that I had never employed or authorized anyone to access their unit or collect payments on my behalf. Destiny actually said, "We can tell you're a good person stuck in a bad situation. We're not going to punish you for your family's behavior." That meant more to me than I can ever express. Next, I started digging for other victims. I went through all my records from the past year, every inquiry application showing for the smaller unit. I found 7 people who had inquired but didn't move forward. I called every single one. Most couldn't be reached or didn't remember details. 2 confirmed they'd only interacted with me directly. But then, there was Janelle. Janelle's story made my stomach drop. She'd been very interested in the unit back in May, before Marcus and Destiny moved in. She'd found my listing online and reached out. She said the property manager had shown her the unit at a time when I was at work and hadn't scheduled any showing. This manager told her the rent would be $950 per month instead of my listed $875 and collected a $950 security deposit in cash. She never heard back. When she tried to follow up, the number was disconnected. She assumed it was a scam and moved on, but she never connected it to me specifically. She thought it was some elaborate fake listing scheme. Tyler had collected $950 from this woman and simply kept it. I asked Janelle if she'd be willing to provide a written statement or speak with the police. She was hesitant but said she'd think about it. Against some of the advice, I decided to give my father one more chance. I thought that if I presented him with undeniable evidence that his stepson had literally stolen money from people, he'd have to acknowledge reality. I drove to their house. Linda answered the door, instantly launching into, "Oh, look who's decided to show up after ignoring us for days." I told her I wasn't there to argue, I needed to talk to my dad about something serious. Tyler was there too, sprawled on the couch playing a game on his phone, completely oblivious. He didn't even look up. When my dad came into the living room, I laid it all out. "Dad, Tyler didn't just enter my tenant's unit without permission. He's been collecting deposits from prospective tenants and keeping them. I have at least one victim who's willing to testify. This isn't learning the business. This is fraud and theft." The room went quiet for about 3 seconds before Linda exploded. "How dare you come into my home and accuse my son of being a criminal? Tyler would never. You've always been jealous of him. Always had to be the golden child. And now you're making up lies to destroy his reputation." Tyler finally looked up from his phone, a smirk on his face. "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I never took money from anyone. That woman's probably lying." I looked at my dad, pleading. "Dad, look at me. I'm not making this up. This is serious. If the police get involved, it's not going to be me who suffers. It's going to be him. I'm giving you a chance to make this right." My father rubbed his face, looking older than I'd ever seen him. And then he said something I will never, ever forget. "Even if Tyler made some mistakes, he's young. He's learning. People your age got to make mistakes before the internet made everything a permanent record. Why can't you just let him learn from this privately? Why do you have to blow everything up? You know how hard Linda's worked to give him opportunities." I stared at him, my mouth agape. "Dad, he stole from people. He broke into my tenant's home. These aren't mistakes. These are crimes." His response was cold. "You're being dramatic. Just like your mother always was." I walked out without another word. I was done. Absolutely, unequivocally done. My father had just compared my dead mother, his first wife, unfavorably, to defend his stepson's criminal behavior. The next day, I consulted with a real estate attorney. Her advice was clear. File a police report for Tyler's unauthorized entry, gather all evidence of him misrepresenting himself. If Janelle cooperates, she should file her own police report for theft. I needed to send Tyler a formal cease and desist letter, making it clear he had no authority to act on my behalf, and send a similar notice to my father and Linda. The attorney also warned me about potential civil liability if other victims came forward. It was in my best interest to proactively demonstrate that Tyler was never authorized to act for me. I had the cease and desist letters drafted. This week I filed the police report. My mental state? Honestly, I was gutted about my dad, but in a weird way I also felt relieved. I'd spent years trying to maintain a relationship with someone who consistently chose his new family over basic respect for me. At least now, I knew exactly where I stood. The police report was filed. The cease and desist letters were sent. And everything officially exploded. I went to the police station and filed the report for the unauthorized entry into my tenant's unit. Marcus provided a written statement, and the neighbor who saw Tyler entering with a key also agreed to give a statement. The officer was very matter-of-fact. This was criminal trespass and potentially burglary if theft could be proven. They hadn't arrested Tyler yet, but they said they'd investigate. And Janelle? She decided to file her own report. She texted me saying she realized if Tyler did this to her, he probably did it to others, and she didn't want someone else to get scammed because she stayed quiet. The day after the letters arrived, Linda blew up my phone with 23 text messages over 3 hours. The greatest hits: "You're tearing this family apart over nothing. Tyler was just trying to help and this is how you repay him. Your father is devastated. I hope you're happy. You've always thought you were better than us. Your mother raised a selfish, cold person. We're consulting with our attorney. You're going to regret this. Answer me." I didn't respond to any of them. 2 days later, my dad showed up at my workplace. He walked into the service bay where I was elbow deep in a Caterpillar engine, and just stood there until I looked at him. "We need to talk," he said. "This has gone too far." I told him I was working and couldn't talk, but he insisted this was more important. I pulled him aside, away from my coworkers, and I told him the truth, a truth he refused to acknowledge. "Dad," I said, my voice low but firm, "you had multiple chances to do the right thing. You could have told Tyler to apologize and stay away from my property. You could have made him return the money he stole. You could have acknowledged that what he did was wrong. Instead, you defended him, attacked me, and brought up Mom like she would have been on your side. She wouldn't have been. You know that. He tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I filed the police report because I have to protect myself legally. If Tyler scammed other people claiming to work for me, I could be liable. I'm not going to risk losing everything I've worked for to protect someone who's never worked for anything in his life. And I'm not going to keep a relationship with people who think that's unreasonable. My dad looked older in that moment than I'd ever seen him. He said, "Linda's threatening to leave me if I don't fix this. She says I'm not defending my family." I told him that was between him and Linda, but I wasn't going to drop legal action to save his marriage. He left without saying goodbye. Here's where things got really interesting. After my post went viral on a few platforms, someone cross-posted it without my knowledge. I got a DM from a guy named Chris. Chris said he'd seen my story, and it sounded exactly like something that happened to him 4 months ago. Chris had been looking for an apartment in my area, found what he thought was my listing, was shown the unit by the property manager, and paid a $1,000 application fee in cash. He never heard back. When he tried the number again, it was disconnected. He'd written it off as a scam and moved on. The timeline matched. The description of the property manager matched Tyler. Chris still had text messages from the number Tyler used. He forwarded them to me. That was 3 confirmed victims now. Janelle, $950. The cash from Marcus and Destiny's unit, $400. And Chris, $1,000. That's $2,350 in documented theft, plus whatever else might be out there. Chris agreed to file a police report. The detective called me and said that with multiple victims and a clear pattern of behavior, this was being taken seriously. 3 weeks later, I got a call from the detective. Tyler was arrested. They'd issued a warrant and picked him up. He was charged with criminal trespass for entering Marcus and Destiny's unit, theft by deception for the fraudulent deposits, and a few other charges I don't fully understand. He spent 1 night in jail before Linda bailed him out. His preliminary hearing was scheduled for next month. The fallout? The family drama reached levels I didn't think possible. Linda was telling everyone, extended family, friends, her church group, that I had my own brother arrested over a misunderstanding, that I was trying to destroy Tyler's future because I was jealous of the attention Linda gives him. Several relatives I barely talked to reached out to lecture me about forgiveness and keeping family matters private. My aunt, my dad's sister, sent me a 3-paragraph text about how your father has been crying and how I should think about what your mother would want. I responded to my aunt with a detailed explanation of what Tyler actually did. The illegal entry, the theft from my tenants, the thousands of dollars scammed from prospective renters. I included redacted screenshots of the police reports. She never responded. Here's the thing about family dynamics. The truth doesn't matter as much as the story. And Linda had been controlling that story, painting me as the villain and Tyler as the victim of my vindictiveness. But I was done caring about their narrative. Marcus and Destiny, my tenants, were incredibly gracious throughout all of this. They told me they'd decided to renew their lease. Marcus said, "Man, you handled this like a professional. You didn't make excuses. You protected us. That's all we can ask." Destiny added, "Plus, this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to us. We're living in a true crime podcast." They're good people. I gave them a $50 rent reduction for the next 3 months as a thank you for their patience. It was the least I could do. Chris and Janelle both cooperated with the prosecution. The detective told me Chris's text messages were particularly useful because Tyler used his real phone number for a while before switching to burner phones. That number was linked to Tyler's actual identity. Janelle felt vindicated that this was being taken seriously. She'd felt stupid for falling for the scam and blamed herself. Knowing it wasn't just her, that Tyler was running an actual scheme, helped her process it. My attorney advised me to consider a civil suit against Tyler for damages, but I learned he had no assets, no savings, nothing. Collecting would be nearly impossible. Linda and my dad might have resources, but unless I could prove they were directly involved, which I couldn't, they weren't liable. Justice in this case, I realized, might be limited to the criminal consequences. And my dad? I hadn't spoken to him since he showed up at my workplace. He hadn't reached out either, not even after Tyler's arrest. Part of me, a small, hopeful part, expected him to call, to apologize, to acknowledge he'd been wrong. That call never came. Instead, I heard through my aunt that Dad told the family I'd chosen money over blood, and that he was mourning the loss of his son. The dramatic irony of him mourning his son while I, his actual biological son, was standing right here, simply demanding basic respect, was almost funny. Almost. Someone in the comments of my original post recommended therapy. I started seeing someone, and it's been incredibly helpful to have a neutral party to talk through the guilt I felt. Not guilt about pressing charges, but guilt about not feeling more guilty. I expected this to tear me apart emotionally. Instead, I mostly felt resolved. My therapist said that's healthy. She said I'd spent years accommodating dysfunction, and finally setting a firm boundary, even one with serious consequences, can feel like relief rather than grief. She was right. I grieved my relationship with my dad a long time ago. I just didn't admit it until now. 2 months later, the criminal case was resolved. Tyler took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of criminal trespass and 2 counts of theft by deception. In exchange, the prosecution dropped some of the other charges. He was sentenced to 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay restitution to all identified victims: Janelle, Chris, and Marcus, and Destiny, for the cash. He won't serve jail time unless he violates probation. I have mixed feelings about this outcome. Part of me wanted him to face real incarceration, not out of revenge, but because I genuinely believe he hasn't learned anything. During the hearing, his court-appointed attorney painted him as a young man who made poor choices while struggling to find his path. Tyler himself said nothing. Linda sat behind him, glaring at me whenever our eyes met. But ultimately, the victims got acknowledgement. The system recorded what he did. And he now has a criminal record that will follow him for years. That's something. As for the restitution, Tyler has no money. Collecting will be a long process, likely through wage garnishment, if and when he ever holds a real job. Janelle told me she doesn't expect to see her $950 again. Chris said the same. As a gesture, and because I felt partially responsible for their victimization, even though logically I know I'm not, I reimbursed Janelle and Chris out of my own pocket. It was about $2,000 total. They both tried to refuse, but I insisted. My attorney advised against it for liability reasons, saying it could be seen as an admission of responsibility. I didn't care. These people were hurt because Tyler used my property and my listing to run his scam. I could afford the money. They deserve to be made whole, even if the system couldn't do it quickly. My relationship with my father is over. I mean that in a concrete, permanent way. After the plea hearing, he approached me outside the courthouse. I expected anger. Instead, he seemed deflated. "I hope you're satisfied," he said. "Tyler's going to have this on his record forever. Linda's inconsolable. And for what? Some money?" I looked at my father. Really looked at him. And in that moment, I realized I was looking at a stranger. This man chose his wife's comfort over his own son's safety, reputation, and livelihood. He enabled a grifter. He invoked my dead mother to try to manipulate me. He let Linda reshape reality so that I became the villain. I told him, "Dad, I'm not the one who did this to Tyler. Tyler did this to Tyler. And you did this to us, to our relationship, by refusing to hold him accountable. I gave you multiple chances. You chose him every time." He started to argue, but I kept going. "I don't hate you. I don't hate Linda. I don't even hate Tyler, really. But I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one who's expected to clean up everyone else's messes. I'm done being treated like I owe anyone anything for building a life through hard work. If you ever want to have a real conversation, one where you take accountability for your choices, you know how to reach me. Until then, I think we should go our separate ways." I walked to my truck and drove home. He hasn't reached out since. Neither has Linda. Tyler certainly hasn't. And honestly, that's okay. Life now? Marcus and Destiny renewed their lease. They're planning to stay at least another 2 years, which gives me stable income and great tenants. I've actually started the process of buying a second property, a small single-family home that needs work. My goal is to have 3 rental properties by the time I'm 35. I'm learning about real estate investing properly this time, taking courses, networking with other investors, getting everything documented and airtight. My therapist and I have been working through the complicated feelings about my dad. She helped me understand that I was seeking approval from someone who was never going to give it unconditionally, that my father's approval was always contingent on me accommodating dysfunction. Letting go of that need has been incredibly liberating. I've also reconnected with some of my mom's side of the family, cousins I hadn't talked to in years. They'd been distanced because Linda was uncomfortable around them, always seeing them as competition for my loyalty. Now, without that pressure, I'm rebuilding those relationships. Someone in my original comments asked me if I regretted buying the duplex, given all the chaos it triggered. The answer is no. This didn't start because of the duplex. It started years ago when my dad chose appeasement over parenting. When he let Linda's entitlement go unchecked. When he decided that keeping the peace was more important than doing the right thing. The duplex just brought everything to the surface. I'm not glad my stepbrother turned out to be a scammer. I'm not glad my father chose him over me. I'm not glad I had to file police reports and hire attorneys and deal with family members who'd rather shoot the messenger than acknowledge the message. But I am glad I handled it the right way. I protected my tenants. I protected my property. I protected myself. I did everything legally, professionally, and without stooping to pettiness. And now I get to move forward, building the life I've worked for, without the dead weight of people who never wanted me to succeed anyway. So, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family, even when it felt like everything was on the line? I really want to hear your thoughts on this.